What's gaming, gamers? Today, I've got a Stasis Warlock build for you, centered around using Stasis turrets, keeping them active, and continuously feeding yourself grenade energy to keep the loop alive. We'll be using the exotic Arm's Osmiomancy gloves, as it'll give us a second cold snap grenade charge, which just means more turrets on the ground. Before I get into Armour, however, I have to talk about the subclass's aspects and fragments. The only super is Winter's Wrath, which is good for ad clearing, and as it's a roaming super, you'll gain significant damage resistance while using it, which is really good for getting a clutch revive on a teammate who's gone down, or simply getting yourself out of a sticky situation. You can run either the healing or empowering rifts, as they both have the same cooldown. I run the healing rift because I like the protection it offers me if I'm low health, but empowering rift works really well for killing major enemies and champions quicker while they're frozen. There's only one option for melee in the Penumbral Blast, which is a really good utility for quickly freezing a target if your turrets aren't doing the job quick enough, and for grenade, you should run the Cold Snap grenade. The other two grenades are both really good in their own right, but as the build uses the Osmiomancy gloves, it requires the Cold Snap grenades to get the second grenade charge. Onto aspects, the most important one is Bleak Watcher. This is what will allow you to consume your grenade and turn it into a stasis turret, which shoots slowing projectiles at the closest enemy to the turret. Once enough of the projectiles hit the target, it will freeze, and this stops them dead in their tracks. There's no limit to the amount of turrets that you can have on the ground, but when you have Bleak Watcher equipped, your grenade's base cooldown will always be that of the Glacier Grenade. The Glacier Grenade has the longest cooldown of the three stasis grenades at 2 minutes and 34 seconds, so as I'll discuss later, speccing into Discipline is heavily recommended. The second aspect to run is Glacial Harvest. This will create 3 stasis shards at the position of an enemy who becomes frozen, giving you melee energy whenever picked up. Glacial Harvest has an internal cooldown of around 15 seconds, and that cooldown triggers when 6 stasis shards have been created. On top of giving you melee energy, stasis shards can be changed by mods to act as elemental wells, but I'll talk more about the specifics of that when I go over the armor build later. The fragments for this build are also somewhat personal preference, but there are a couple that are must picks. Firstly, use Whisper of Durance. This will increase the amount of time slow stacks are present on a target, allowing them to be frozen by turrets easier. It also increases the amount of time lingering abilities last. This includes stasis turrets. By default, Bleak Watcher turrets last for around 25 seconds, but with Whisper of Durance, we can increase that to 30 seconds. 5 seconds might not seem like a lot, but a 20% increase in uptime is significant in keeping rooms under your control. The second fragment that you should bring is Whisper of Torment. This will give you around 5% grenade energy when you take any amount of damage on a 1 second cooldown. This means that if you're taking damage, as you would be in any late game activity, you can refill your grenade charge in as little as 20 seconds. The last mandatory fragment is Whisper of Refraction. This will refund around 10% of your rift energy when you get a kill on a slowed or frozen target. However, killing an enemy with shatter damage does not refund the energy, so be wary of that. If you kill one frozen enemy and 4 more surrounding it all die to shatter damage, you'll only get the 10% from the one frozen enemy and not any extra from the enemies who died to the shatter. For the last fragment, there's a choice to be made, and there are a couple different options, all with different pros and cons. Firstly on the list is Whisper of Hedrons. This will give you an increase to your mobility, resilience, and recovery stats upon freezing a target, as well as adding bonuses to your weapon stability, aim assist, and airborne effectiveness. Realistically, I only care about this one for the armor stat boosts, as it gives 60 points of mobility, resilience, and recovery. I'm already at tier 10 resilience with my armor, so it doesn't help me at all there, but recovery is nice to get the rifts back faster, and mobility is nice for the movement speed buff. The boosts last for 12 seconds after freezing a target, and resets back to 12 seconds every time you freeze another target. Your next option is Whisper of Fissures. This one will increase the size of the blast when you shatter a frozen target or a stasis crystal, which can be really good for clearing rooms of ads out quicker. I don't like this one personally, as it doesn't work with Whisper of Refraction because it would be the shatter damage killing other enemies instead of your gun, but it's really good for getting lots of damage on grouped up enemies when you have only one of them frozen. Your next option is Whisper of Rending. This fragment will cause any primary ammo weapon you have to deal about 43% increased damage to frozen targets, as well as doubling their damage on stasis crystals. The 43% damage increase is really nice, especially when dealing with majors and champions, or even adds in late game content, as they can be pretty tanky. But for majors and champions, any special weapon is generally better for taking them out anyways. If you're one to conserve ammo, or you run double primary, this is a good option, but if you run a special weapon, or are in an activity where ammo conservation isn't as important, Whisper of Rending isn't necessary. Your final option is Whisper of Conduction. This will make any nearby stasis shards track to your position, as well as giving you a plus 10 stat boost in both resilience and intellect. The tracking of stasis shards is nice, as if you've frozen enemies who are in a bad position, you don't need to get as close to them to collect the shards they've dropped. The stat boosts are also really nice, especially the plus 10 resilience, as it's the most important stat in the game at the moment with its 40% damage reduction at tier 10. My recommendation to you is either Whisper of Hedrons or Whisper of Conduction. I swap between the two frequently as they're useful in different circumstances. If you don't have high stat armor, Whisper of Hedrons is far and away the better option, as you'll be freezing enemies constantly and keeping its stat boosts constantly procced. However, if your armor already has you at tier 10 resilience and around tier 7 recovery, Whisper of Hedrons becomes less useful, and the safety of the tracking stasis shards that Whisper of Conduction gives you could be beneficial. As I said before, this one is entirely personal preference, neither one of them are objectively better than the other for this build specifically. With the subclass build out of the way, it's time to move on to armor. For stats, firstly and foremostly, spec into resilience. At tier 10 resilience, you have a massive 40% damage reduction to all damage sources in the game, making it far and away the best stat for any content. Secondly, spec for discipline and recovery. Prioritize discipline, as it'll be easier to get tier 10 discipline than it will be to get both tier 10 resilience and recovery, but aim for as high a recovery stat as you can as well. My armor has tier 10 resilience, tier 10 discipline, and tier 7 recovery, but anything tier 5 or above for recovery will be totally fine and very achievable for those of you who don't farm high stat armor consistently. Onto your armor's affinities, your helmet's affinity doesn't matter. There aren't any mods socketed into the helmet that require a specific energy type, so you can leave that one be. For the rest of the armor, run Stasis arms, a solar chest piece, solar legs, and a solar bond. The armor mods for this build are entirely focused on your grenades, making sure they've got energy as consistently as possible. To facilitate this, on your helmet, in the combat style slot, put in an elemental charge mod. Elemental charge gives you 1 stack of charged with light when you pick up an elemental well, and if the elemental well matches your subclass element, it gives you 2 stacks of charged with light. In your helmet specific slots, run a kinetic siphon and a harmonic siphon mod. These will simply create orbs of power when getting rapid kills with stasis and kinetic weapons, giving you extra super energy consistently. Alternatively, you could make your helmet the element of your energy weapon and run the siphon mod for that one, whether it be solar, arc, or void, but I'll talk more about weapons later in the video. For now, onto your arms. In the combat style slot, run an elemental shards mod. This is what will get you charged with light when using elemental charge on your helmet, as it makes stasis shards count as stasis elemental wells. Elemental shards does have a cooldown of 5 seconds, meaning that you can only get a stack of charged with light every 5 seconds, but because elemental shards makes shards count as stasis wells, you'll get 2 stacks of charged with light for every shard you pick up when elemental shards is off cooldown. This is really strong for keeping charged with light up, as it's important for spamming the stasis turrets. For your chest piece, in the combat style slot, run a firepower mod. This will refund some of your grenade energy when you use your grenade ability, as long as you're charged with light when you do so. In the chest specific slots, there's not much that's useful, so I recommend running whichever resistance mod you prefer, whether that be concussive dampener, a solar resist mod because the chest piece is solar, or the seasonal resist mod, which in Season of the Seraph is energy diffusion substrate. It doesn't really matter which you choose, just pick whichever one you prefer for whatever content you're doing. Moving on to your legs, in the combat style slot, run another firepower mod. This will stack with the firepower mod on your chest piece, refunding even more grenade energy when you use it. 1 firepower mod will give you around 15% grenade energy, and 2 firepower mods will give you around 30% grenade energy. Firepower can be stacked up to 4 times, increasing its energy refund by 15% for every mod equipped, up to a maximum of 60%, but only stacking 2 is just fine for this build. In the leg specific slots, run 2 innervation mods. Combined with your harmonic and kinetic siphon mods in your helmet, you'll be generating orbs frequently, and innervation will give you grenade energy on orb pickup, which will help you even further to regenerate your grenade energy faster. Lastly, for your Warlock bond, in the combat style slot, run a taking charge mod. This will make you charge with light when picking up an orb of power, lessening the effects of the elemental shards mod's brutal 5-second cooldown. In the class item specific slots, run 2 bomber mods. These will give you grenade energy when you use your class ability, which will be important in the combat loot later on. Now that we're done talking armor, I'll move on to weapons. For this build, there are specific weapon perks that can synergize incredibly well with stasis as well as grenade spam, giving you plenty of options for weapon choice. There are a lot of different options I'll cover here, so to simplify things, I'll start with the kinetic slot. In the kinetic slot, if you want pure ability energy, your best option by far is the exotic Traveler's Chosen sidearm. This sidearm can be purchased from the Monument to Lost Lights in the tower and is built around spamming your abilities. The gun's perk, Gathering Light, makes final blows give you stacks of a buff called Gathering Light. When you hold your reload button, you gain ability energy for all 3 of your abilities based on the amount of stacks you had when you activated Gathering Light. At the maximum stacks of 10, Gathering Light will fully recharge all of your abilities. Gathering Light stacks also don't go away when you stow Traveler's Chosen, letting you build up 10 stacks and use whatever other weapons you have equipped. Then, whenever you want, you can pull out Traveler's Chosen and activate the perk to get your ability energy instantly. Traveler's Chosen also has a catalyst that's a random drop from playlist activities. The catalyst gives the gun 2 perks, those being Osmosis and Surplus. Osmosis is incredibly strong for this build especially. When you have the weapon equipped, throwing your grenade changes the gun's damage type to that matching your subclass. In our case, this would make Traveler's Chosen a stasis weapon, synergizing with the harmonic siphon mod in the helmet to summon even more orbs of power. If you don't have Traveler's Chosen, or otherwise don't want to use it or don't like using it, there are a couple other weapon perks you can choose. Demolitionist is your first option, as kills with a primary or heavy weapon that have Demolitionist will recharge 10% of your grenade energy. Unfortunately, in the kinetic slot, only 2 primary weapons have Demolitionist as a possible role, and I have neither of them. These guns are something new, a hand cannon from the Solstice event, and Peace Bond, a sidearm from Iron Banner. There are quite a few special weapons in the kinetic slot that can roll Demolitionist, so if you're looking for that, some options are the Deliverance Fusion Rifle from the Valve the Disciple raid, the Riptide Fusion Rifle from the Crucible playlist, the Lingering Dread Grenade Launcher from the Duality Dungeon, and the Pardon Our Dust Grenade Launcher from the Dares of Eternity. Those are only a couple options, and there are more, but if you want a stepping stone, those are some weapons I enjoy using. Another perk that can be really helpful is Wellspring, but this time only 3 kinetic slot primary ammo weapons can roll it. The Lunalata 4B World Drop Bow, the Something New Hand Cannon from Solstice, and the Blood Feud Submachine Gun from Season of Plunder. Blood Feud is craftable, so if you want to get the Wellspring perk quick and easy, that'll be the fastest way to farm it, but Wellspring has a couple cons I haven't mentioned yet. Demolitionist works all of the time, but Wellspring won't give you any ability energy if you have 3 abilities currently charged, meaning you have to be using your abilities for Wellspring to give you ability energy. Plus, Demolitionist refunds 10% of your grenade energy on a primary ammo weapon kill, whereas Wellspring only refunds around 8%. And that 8% is divided between your uncharged abilities, meaning you only get anywhere from 2.6 to 4% ability energy per kill depending on how many abilities are currently uncharged. Another perk I have yet to mention is Chill Clip. This is a Stasis weapon exclusive perk and makes shots fired slow targets, eventually freezing them. This will act the same as slow from your abilities, and when targets are frozen by Chill Clip, they will also spawn Stasis shards provided Glacial Harvest isn't on cooldown. Because Chill Clip can only roll on special and heavy weapons, and Stasis weapons can only be in the kinetic and heavy slots, having a Chill Clip weapon is an argument against Traveler's Chosen, and it's a pretty strong one. Chill Clip will help keep enemies frozen, as well as dealing high damage, as it's a special weapon outputting the damage. It is also a faster way to get your initial stacks of Charge with Light, as you don't have to use your melee ability to freeze an enemy to collect Stasis shards, or get multi-kills with your primary weapon, which can be hard in late game content. There are only a few guns in the game that can roll Chill Clip, and in the kinetic slot, these weapons are the Deliverance Fusion Rifle from the Vow of the Disciple raid, which is craftable, the Riptide Fusion Rifle from the Crucible playlist, the Burden of Guilt Fusion Rifle from the Trials of Osiris loot pool, the Orvandal FR6 Fusion Rifle from the World Drought loot pool, and the Lingering Dread Grenade Launcher from the Duality Dungeon. The best weapon out of these by far is Deliverance, as it is the only special weapon in the game to be able to roll Chill Clip and Demolitionist in different columns. I have not been fortunate enough to get one from the raid, nor have I gotten enough Deliverance patterns to craft it myself, and I understand lots of people aren't able to raid often or at all. Because of that, personally, I use the Riptide Fusion Rifle as it's fairly simple to farm, but the Orvandal FR6 is also easy to farm by either earning rank reward engrams from Banshee or focusing Worldly Weapon Umbral engrams at any of the seasonal vendors on the helm. I'm not a person who plays PvP often at all, so I don't play Trials or Iron Banner, leaving me without the option of the P-Spawn Sidearm or the Burden of Guilt Fusion Rifle. But if you are one to play those game modes, look out for Demolitionist and Chill Clip respectively. Yet another perk I haven't talked about is Headstone, which is available on most, if not all, Stasis primary weapons, but it doesn't synergize with this build specifically too well, as it doesn't slow or freeze targets, instead simply dealing shatter damage to nearby enemies. This perk can be effectively ignored for this build. For your energy weapon, it depends on what you're running in your kinetic slot. Do you have the Chill Clip Demolitionist Deliverance? Probably run an exotic here, something you enjoy using, whether that be something really strong like Le Monarch, or something simply fun to use like Devil's Ruin. If you're running Traveler's Chosen, running a Demolitionist weapon in your energy slot can be really strong for keeping uptime on your grenades, especially if you don't enjoy Traveler's Chosen that much and are mostly using it for its ability energy potential. Personally, I use a Demolitionist Adrenaline Junkie Unforgiven Submachine Gun from the Duality Dungeon, but any weapon that can roll Demolitionist will work, and there are plenty of weapons that can from all activities. I simply don't have the time to go over all the weapons that can roll Demolitionist, but I'll leave a link in the description to a light.gg roll finder that will show you all the primary and special weapons that can roll it. Your heavy weapon slot isn't as important, but there are options. If you're not running an exotic in your kinetic or energy slots, definitely run one here. But assuming you have an exotic weapon already equipped, some options that synergize with Stasis are the Palmyra B and Bump in the Night rocket launchers, as both can roll Chill Clip and are craftable. Palmyra B is a world drop, and Bump in the Night is a weapon from the Crown of Sorrow and the Helm. Bump in the Night can get Demolitionist, Autoloading Holster, and Tracking Module all in its first column, with Chill Clip in its second, so it's up to you how you want to build the gun. Personally, I use Demolitionist and Chill Clip, but there's an argument to be made for Autoloading Holster, as it will let you swap to the rocket and instantly swap off, letting you continue getting kills with your Demolitionist energy weapon or your Traveler's Chosen. If you aren't into rocket launchers, the new Fire and Forget Aggressive Frame Linear Fusion Rifle from Season of the Seraph can also roll Chill Clip and is craftable, which is a really strong option. I haven't leveled up my Fire and Forget yet, but when I do, I'll be putting Enhanced Chill Clip and Enhanced Field Prep. As a niche option, if you played during Season of the Haunted, the ritual weapon that season was Chain of Command, a Stasis adaptive frame machine gun that has Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie on it. This is a fun gun to pick, but if you want boss damage, a rocket or linear fusion rifle is the better option. Now that I've talked about weapons, it's finally time to go over the combat loot for this build. Firstly, if you're running Traveler's Chosen, build up 10 stacks of Gathering Light. This will help you in starting the grenade spam. If you aren't running Traveler's Chosen, you can skip that step and move straight on to the next one, which is getting your 2 stacks of Charge with Light. You can use your melee ability to freeze an enemy and collect the stasis charge they drop to become Charged with Light, or you can get multi-kills with your primary ammo weapon and spawn Orbs of Power to become Charged with Light that way. Once you've got your 2 stacks of Charge with Light, you can start throwing your grenades. Throw both your grenades as turrets, then use your melee ability if you haven't already, wait for your turrets to freeze something or create more orbs of power, and get charged with light again. Use your rifts to get more grenade energy back from the double bomber mods on your bond, and you should have a third grenade charge back. Throw the grenade as a turret and use Traveler's Chosen's Gathering Light ability to get you yet another grenade charge, giving you 4 turrets on the ground. Realistically, 4 turrets is all you should have on the ground at one time, as you can put one in each corner of a square area to lock the entire thing down, and any extra turrets will simply encroach on the other ones already there. Use this time to get kills with your Demolitionist weapon or Traveler's Chosen and get yourself grenade energy back. With Whisper of Hedrons, you'll have max recovery when you freeze enemies, getting your rift back really fast, so use that on cooldown as well, as with the double bomber mods in your bond, you'll get grenade energy from that. If you'll be defending a room or area for a while, replace your turrets as they get close to disappearing, otherwise simply letting all of your abilities recharge is the smarter option, as that means you'll be able to do the entire combo again when you get to your next room or area. And that's all there is to it. If you have any questions about the build, any suggestions or corrections, leave them in the comments, as I appreciate constructive feedback. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week with another build.